David, we just started. I'm gonna make the announcement. I don't think anyone has called in or emailed for extraordinary circumstances. I'll just jump right into the report. The non-committee members on Zoom, you're not permitted to participate during the executive committee discussions. You're welcome to send in any comments. The board office or myself if you have any questions or concerns from tonight's meeting. And as far as my report, I'll just ask, this is something that I'm asking because I'm doing this, but if we could all have our documents into the office prior to any meeting, the latest at least by 12 noon the day before, because the day of the meeting is a little hectic. And it's not, no, it's just there. And it's just not fair to you all. So far, I apologize because I'm guilty.
What's the gavel?
I know. Okay. And that goes for the resolutions as well. If there's any brought before the board meeting to the executive meeting, but we can just review them. In regards to board meetings, since we had such a lovely one in January, board meetings have to be said, but it will be said that please don't speak unless you're called upon. And definitely, I could have been a little bit more in control the last month, but we will have to speak when you raise your hands or if you're acknowledged and you're given the floor. In regards to the resolution, if anyone wants to have any discussions on it, thinking that when there's a resolution put up, possibly, if it's a long night and we have a lot of resolutions, to possibly maybe we can call upon people who have 3 opposing views and 3 approval views. What is your feedback on that? I'm throwing it out there to anyone. If there's a resolution, right, and let's say like your resolution, a lot of people had a lot of different ideas. Some were for it, some were against it. So rather than have like 8 people for it and 3 people against it, let's try to pin it down to ask for maybe like 3 people who are against it and 3 people who are for it, so that we can hear their reasoning why. And this is like if it's a long night, if we know we have a packed agenda, like this month we're going to have a packed agenda, so that we don't hear the same thing over and over, and people can get their opinions across, and we can hear the pros and the cons on a resolution in a fair manner.
There's gonna have to be at some point a cutoff, and that's your decision to make when the cutoff.
Yes, we agree, but I would like positives and negatives on a resolution, so that everyone has heard at least some of the facts both ways.
That would be true for resolutions where there are positives and negatives.
Right.
That's not always the case.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but if there
But I
is.
understand,
Yeah.
the time has to be managed in some way.
Yeah, because I'm sure that the next big one, city housing, there will be a lot of positives and negatives. Daniel had his hand up first.
And maybe this is for later, but would it be faster if you just made people vote, and if they wanted, they could have like 30 seconds to explain their vote at the voting time?
Because I believe when you're voting, you're not supposed to speak, you're just supposed to vote. There's no discussion during voting.
Well, this was a watching city council, they do that.
Yeah.
Where they did it for this overriding the veto. Almost everyone was like, permission to explain my vote, and then said why they were voting one way or the other.
Right.
And then voted.
I did it for Kelly's vote. I explained it because I didn't want people to think that I just was against SAR.
You know, and I feel like in some ways, it's like then if people feel like they didn't get to say it, it's like, it's then, and then if their reasoning is, I don't know, if that's maybe.
Anyone can always vote and say, like, give a reason, but in regards to the,
Like I meant like as opposed to a debate. Be like.
It's a 5-year
that-
plan
that
from
doesn't
DOE.
allow, I guess, people to kind of.
Okay, I had just said like 2 minutes ago, let's please have one conversation, one person at a time. Daniel was talking, there's 2 people down there talking. And I can't see who's next to you, David, but I know someone had their hand up.
Mary.
But just to finish off on Daniel's point, for sure. Unless Marty has something in regard to the rules and regulations, I think that's, yeah.
You run the meeting?
I'm talking about before we vote,
Right.
so that people can get information both ways.
Ed and then Rosemary.
So he spoke already, so I want one person at a time. Thank you.
Well, I think if,
Can you raise your hand?
That's fine, that's fine.
Context,
Rosemary.
sorry, in that context, someone make a presentation,
Negative, and that's it.
Right, and the presentation's 3, 4, and 3 again, so more, but similar. So yes, Daniel.
I think it's Marty's saying almost maybe just one on each side.
You wanna hear more,
Rosemary is,
no, you wanna hear more than one person's point of view. Rosemary?
We're a deliberative body, okay? We go to meetings, we have thoughts, we have things to add to a discussion. Maybe somebody would change their vote. Maybe somebody would say, oh, maybe that's a good idea, I didn't think of that. We're a deliberative body and have a right to speak our opinion, not while you're voting, before, so that everybody considers, there are many years on this board, around this table, and at the board meeting. And those thoughts, I want to hear what board members have to say, especially those who have been around and heard debates on similar issues over the years. So I would absolutely be opposed to, I'm voting no, let me explain my vote.
No, we'll be there all night.
Thank you.
I'm talking about before we vote, to hear both sides of a
you have the right
resolution.
to say, well, 10 minutes on this item, and then cut off debate.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so I pretty much echo what Rosemary said, but it gave me a thought when you said 3 and 3. So, let's say we have a 50-body thing, and there's only 3 people with an opposing view and 47 people with a
Yeah.
pro view, or vice versa. You're gonna get a skewed, discussion. It's not gonna really reflect what the overall body is thinking, would be my.
But you'll hear the same amount of number of pros and cons. And this 3 is just a number.
That's the problem, I think.
If you hear 3 pros and 3 cons,
Yeah, if the overwhelming majority is either con or pro, then it's gonna seem more balanced than it actually is.
you can't have like 10 people, 3 no. It has to be fair.
Great.
And it's, 3
I'm
is
with
just, it's a tentative
Rosemary.
number.
Everybody should have a chance to, speak.
Well, it's speaking before the vote. I'm talking about before the vote, not the vote itself, before. When you explain your resolution, you'll have people who have questions or maybe one before or maybe she did it.
and he puts it,
Discussion part.
third.
No, there's nobody there.
In our bylaws, we're addressing that?
No, Marty just
But I saw him come in.
Marty just said that I can say, okay, we're gonna have 10 minutes on this resolution, and within those 10 minutes, it would not be fair if we heard 6 people who were for it and only 2 people who were against it. That wouldn't be fair. It should be an equal number amount. However many people for it, if we have that many people against, we'll do 1, 1, 1, 1.
Chair, here.
Laura?
The chair say, if someone speaks, is there now anyone wishing to speak in opposition? You're calling on them, not the chair of the committee, actually. Chair, you were running the meeting, and you have the right to limit it to 2 minutes.
And I'm doing
Right, but I
positive and
mean-
negative.
But I mean, if somebody speaks for it, and then you say, is there anyone who wishes to speak against it, and you go back and forth, it might not, but I mean, it might not work out that it,
If nobody's against it, then we vote. I mean, if nobody's against it and they're all for it, then we vote.
It's yours,
Yeah, but for the board meeting, I mean, last month was a fiasco.
there are ways to save time,
You have
there are
enough
ways
room
to
up
save
there?
time. It's just that
Should I move down a
other
little
way.
bit?
And I depends on what the issue is. I really have, concerns about cutting off discussion and debate. Limiting the time maybe for each, but I think that, concerning, depending on what the issue is. A lot of issues, it's not gonna be a problem.
Right, so then,
But
this is
some of
new.
them, it might be. But to say, like in advance, we'll have 3 on this and 3 on that, might be, you know, problematic for people who do wish to be able to be recognized and speak.
Well, if time permits, then we'll do more, but if time doesn't permit, to be fair and equitable, we'll do, and 3 is just a number. If we have all night to go, we'll do more than 3, but that's just an approximate number, but it will be balanced. You have 3 for it, you have 3 against to speak, depending on the time.
I think, as chair, you can use your discretion to say, are there any different opinions on this issue? If not, let's vote.
Right.
Your major concern here is, the timing of the meeting, which is what I think it is. I don't think that last month, the problem was the discussion we had on the resolution. I think, and I said this to you earlier, I think the problem was all the people who spoke before we even started the committee report.
We're gonna get to that.
Okay, fine, then I'll put
I
that
just
in
want to do
writing.
one at a time.
That's fine.
And I want to thank everybody who called me and gave critiques, negative, positive, thank you. Marty?
That is important, as the issue we're talking about is 3 speakers, 3 silent speakers.
The fact is, there are other committees. And we tie ourselves up with this one,
Whatever it is, we'll all be around at the end of the meeting, which is not fair to the other committees.
Exactly. That's why I wanted it to be fair and equitable and just do pros and cons evenly, and then we vote. And if nobody has any opposite, of course we're gonna vote. We're not gonna sit there and look at each other, you know, and we're not gonna be there all night, you know. But Bob, we're gonna get to the other one. So, everything can change as time goes. In regards to changes on the agendas, adding, at the term, we added the mayor's report onto the agenda. We added that onto the agenda, and we took off, I think, city planning. So, moving forward for the board members' agenda, we've added council members' report for their own segment, so that they're listed on the agenda separately. And just to clarify something that was said at the meeting, that they don't, some of the council members weren't sure when they should speak. When I became chair, we added elected officials onto the agenda. I don't think they've ever been listed on the agenda, so that if they read the agenda, I think the first, maybe the July they were on the agenda, in September, October, I noticed they weren't. And then after that, we added them onto the agenda every month. So the elected officials, under my term, they've been on the agenda. So now, but we're gonna even go even further and put the elected officials, rather the council members, separate to speak either before us or before the elected officials, separate from the elected officials. Then it comes to the elected officials, what Bob brought up. Too many representatives speaking. So, then agendas we'll have after, I don't know where it is on the agenda, but everyone should have received this month's agenda, and you'll note that it has council members' reports. And underneath that, it has the elected officials' report. The elected officials, what I could recall from September on, we've had the public advocate, the comptroller's office, the senators, and the assembly members speak. At the January meeting, there were a lot. The representatives, I think we could at least give them 1 or 2 minutes, even just 1 minute, if they have anything coming up within a week or 2. That's important for the community to get right away. And they can send us any literature that they have. But But the representatives, I do wanna hear from the representatives, even if it's just for a minute. And the elected officials themselves, they have the 3 minutes like everyone else. The only one who doesn't have the 3 minutes in our meetings is Farah, because she has most of the information for the board. But myself, the treasurer, all of us, we all have 3 minutes, including the elected officials. And we'll be writing them a letter after we have this discussion, because I want your feedback. I will be writing a letter to all the elected officials, advising them that if they are coming to a meeting, because one of the problems with the Zoom, if you have a lot of people in the meeting, whoever's monitoring the computer, not I, you can't see them. And if they're not showing their face, we don't know that they're there. And if I call on them, because I call on all of them, if they don't respond, we don't know that they're there. So I'm going to, when I send a letter to all the elected officials and let them know how they will be on the agenda, we'll also ask them to, if they are attending the meeting, if they can just let us know ahead of time, and if not, when they get to the meeting, either contact Farah or raise their hand so that we can pin them. But they have to show their face, otherwise it could be their rep. They're not gonna give their rep 3 minutes. So, Bob, that was the discussion.
So the issue is, to begin with, we have 3 council representatives, an assemblyman, and 2 state senators. At the January meeting, we also had the public advocate and the controller, and the district attorney, which we have never had in my memory, and somebody can correct me, but I don't recall ever having representatives from those offices speak at our meetings.
Well, sure, in my term they have. In my term they have.
The controller, the public advocate, and the... Okay.
Yeah.
So Clark has spoken.
But, yeah, exactly. But that's the difference.
No, we've had their reps too.
Have we, well, see, that's where, Julie, that's where I think we're making a mistake. All of them have newsletters. You know, I get newsletters every week, as I'm sure everybody does, from both Eric Dinowitz and Jeffrey Dinowitz, because I'm in their districts. If we're going to have representatives of elected officials speak, we're going to have, it's going to be an hour before we get to the committee discussion. If we're in a venue that wants us out at 9 or 9:30, we're going to end up, as we did last month, abbreviating the committee report and the committee discussion, because it simply is not possible to do all of that in that amount of time, especially if we have 1 or 2 contentious resolutions. It's not unusual. To me, there's a difference between the elected official himself or herself being there and the representative being there. And that's where I would draw the line, but Julie, this is your decision.
And Dave, I'll get to you in a minute. I just have to say that since September, and the reason that I kept calling is because I looked at my last, because I didn't have a list in front of me, so I just looked at my last minutes and I was calling them in order from the previous month. I've done that from the first meeting, September, because I was thinking, wow, these are a lot of people I have to call. You know, and they were the reps. Most, I think the senator was physically in our meeting in September, but all of them were the reps on Zoom, except for maybe 2 or 3 of them. So September, the reps spoke, October, November, December, and January. Yeah, it took a lot of time, but we had more time allotted for discussions in January than in any other month. Because in January, that fiasco last month, we had discussions for an hour and a half, and that's longer than the hour that we normally have. That's why I say it really, I will cut down on the reps for sure to 1 minute, but they're not the sole reason why we didn't get all the way through, because we had more time in January. We spent an hour and a half in discussions, whereas in past meetings, it's only been an hour. We've had the reps. But I will cut down on the rep time, because this is the second time we discussed it at exec, so for sure. If they have, I'll ask them, if they have nothing immediate coming on, just give us your flyers. But if they have something immediate, the public should know right away.
Well, you know, as I said, it's up to you, and that sounds like a reasonable approach, and let's hope it works. Yeah.
If it doesn't, we'll be
learn
back
from
here.
each meeting.
We'll be back. I think David had his hand up.
might I suggest, that you send out an email or a letter to all of the electeds saying, we invite you to come present, parentheses, please try to keep it to 2 or 3 minutes, and if you cannot make it, your representative is welcome to come and distribute a flyer or whatever, but not, clearly delineating that you get to speak, but they're not gonna get to speak. And I think it'll encourage them to come, and it will eliminate probably 20 to 30 minutes of, standing up, walking over, trying to find the mic, et cetera, which ends up being 2 to 4 minutes each.
That's on the item too, the microphones.
Okay,
But thank you.
all right.
Yeah, thank you. Sylvia?
I just wanted to say that I was a rep for 17 years, and we were not allowed to speak.
I know, but some things in the.
So that really cuts it down quite a bit. Frankly, I was happy I didn't have to speak, but, it worked.
Yeah.
And they really shouldn't have that much time. They only are reps.
We're only gonna give them 1 minute if there's something immediate. Because you'll have people on Zoom or on the phone who may not, wanna go online and look at their website or look at ours for the information. So if they have something immediate, like that week or the next week, it takes them less than a minute to say what the event is.
What do you want?
Yeah.
Present,
Mhm.
will they go first and then the reps go at the end?
I'm gonna go in order. Start from is there present in the room?
Well, either way, present in the room or present on Zoom.
Well, the council members go first, because they're gonna be on the agenda.
Right.
And then when I get to the elected officials, what I have here, I looked to see the past. The elected officials consist of the public advocate, controller, senator, assembly, and Congress. So if they are showing their face, and especially if they tell us beforehand, they're gonna go first in order. They're there. And then if not, we'll take the people who are there first, and then their reps. Then I'll go back down, because then I'll just cross off their names, the people who are there, but start from the top and work my way down.
Elected officials will go before the rest. Whether they're on Zoom or they're in person, they will go.
Right, according to the order. The council people first, they're gonna go before, like, the assembly, the senators and everything.
the reps
Elected officials,
will go before the representatives.
yes, if they're at the meeting.
I mean, not their representatives, any other representatives.
The elected officials, whether they're on Zoom or in person, will go first. Any other questions? Because what happened in January is what I've been doing from September to January. Personally, I understand what all the fuss was about. Now, besides the fact that, yes, they were elected officials, but they've been in meetings before where they spoke after representatives. It took more time complaining about it before we even got to them. Right, anything else? Oh, okay. See, this camera was on, you guys will say more. At the next meeting, we're going to have a representative, at the next board meeting, the general board, we're going to have a representative from the Conflict of Interest Board. He will speak for about 10 to 15 minutes. So again, that'll be a night where we'll be crunched. Again, 15 minutes, the rep won't be speaking like before, and hopefully we'll have a nice, smooth meeting. Marty will talk more about the representative during his report.
I just want to comment, this guy's gonna speak for 15 minutes.
Mhm.
Just from where I'm seeing it, it's not necessarily the reps speaking that's taking up so much of the time. It's
Mhm.
board members asking them follow-up questions,
Mhm.
where then they go on these long, so people should be mindful of that too,
How many times did I say, okay, if you heard it before, please don't say it, or just get to the point, or if it's in a report, don't say it? And some people still continue to say what's in the report and just go on and on. I'll remind them again, but.
You want to add a time limit on follow-up questions? Open to 1 to 2 questions, a minute. follow-up, like, 'cause
And then we could tell anybody who has any other questions to mail it to the board office in
I'll
Farrington.
follow up with the.
We have a group list of questions to send it through.
Since we're on the subject, I contacted Alex and told him he had 15 minutes, including questions and answers. And more importantly, he's coming the following month to, the LRE meeting. So if anyone has questions, they're more than welcome to come the following month when Alex will be here.
That would be the cap then, 15 minutes, and in 15 minutes, if people have more questions, then we'll do the list. We'll do a nice list, and he can respond back. Thank you, Marty. Okay, so, any suggestions on having a better board meeting?
Hot food?
David?
You could actually put clock times, you know.
I tried that, yeah. I'm working on that, because one board actually does that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then when I did it I was trying to do it for next week's, and I'm thinking we'll never make it.
Okay.
One board actually does that in the Bronx.
For the steps from board members don't.
I'm just gonna have to be more stern. Julia's not here. She's usually very quiet at meetings, and she did a fabulous job standing up so much, saying, you're out of order, do this, do that. I have to thank her for that, you know, because a lot of people didn't listen, but maybe I'll have her sit next to me.
That's what the CBA rulers are for.
Yeah.
The gavel.
Yeah, I have to be more stern on that, you know. Julia, I have to say, that night, she jumped up so much. That meant that I wasn't doing my job as well, because she stood up. So I will be more stern in the future. Any other, Daniel, you have more suggestions? Your eyes said yes. I'll get you later then. You have, anybody else?
I don't know if this is a suggestion. I'm guilty of this as much as anyone.
No way.
And that, I think, we all kind of fall into the habit of addressing an individual in the room that might disagree with our opinion as opposed to addressing the chair, which I believe is the appropriate protocol based on Robert's rules. And I think that's something that we've all kind of, gotten into a bad habit about, myself included, so. And I don't know how to address it other than to acknowledge that, we should try to do a better job at that.
Yes.
Please address the chair.
And I was at fault at that too, because of the few comments that I got back. I was letting the chairs, the resolutions and the votes, and I shouldn't have. So that's a two-way street, Nick. But I will be cutting people off, Nick, in the future. So, because we really have to keep it down. And if it's in the minutes, that'll help people. And people can contact the chairs and ask them, hey, listen, I don't understand this resolution. You don't have to wait till the board meeting. Contact each other. Tell your members if they don't understand a resolution for any committee, contact either Farah, myself, or the chairs, you know? Don't wait for the meeting.
Julie?
Yeah?
You just said something that confused me. So you said that, you were having the chairs do the resolutions.
Mhm.
Isn't that the, way it's supposed to be, or you're gonna read, committee resolutions?
Well,
as
no,
chair?
you're gonna read the resolutions, but when it comes to the voting, I was advised that I should be the one who calls on the people if they have any questions, rather than you call on them, like how Nick was just saying, like you call on them and go back and forth with them. This way, they're not having that discussion. No, and when you read the resolutions, if you could please just go to the therefore, unless it's something that you really have to explain, you know, explain it simply. Don't read the whole resolution, if you can just get to the synopsis of the resolution.
I got a problem with that.
I know you do. Just say these liquor, I know the cannabis, you have to be more detailed.
Well, I mean, with some of the, like, SLAs, that's not an issue, because we all, you know, we know what the routine is, but some of the more complex resolutions, the only problem I have with it is that, you know, it's a big board, and a lot of the members are not familiar with the details, and the devil's in the details in some of these things, and that can actually cause, you know, thumbs up or a thumbs down vote, you know, depending on what some of the whereas clauses say. So to me, on certain issues, you really do need to read the entire thing, just so people can get the information, because
That will be your whole
people
3
don't
minutes.
always read.
3 minutes will be gone. But they don't always read, but they need to start reading, that's the point.
That's right.
Or contact you before. Contact you before. Right, I know, that's another issue, that's another issue. I know, that train is, is coming, but definitely need to get the resolutions, they have to read them, but we can't stay there all night and read all the resolutions, you can't. They need to contact you or anybody in your committee, or Farrah knows it also. And then if they don't know, when they have the discussions, they'll hear the pros and the cons. You know, those are people who don't read, they'll hear it at the meeting. Anybody else?
I'm good.
Okay.
Someone, we all just addressed the same thing, which is people should read before they get to the meeting. Because if they read, then we don't have to stand up there and read the resolutions. And as someone who does that for a living, right, when the matters are presented, we have the issue, this is the issue, do you want to vote on it, yes or not? The resolutions are before you, and yes or no, that's it. And we shouldn't have to hold people's hands in this. Everyone signed up for the same thing, and we all have to make time to do it, as painful as it is sometimes, even with one eye open at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Right. Real quick, we're moving forward with the removal of a board member. And we'll discuss that a bit later. And the Community Service Award, we'll discuss that in new business. Law Rules and Ethics wanted that in new business. Senator Bronxborough Board meeting, and the agenda on the item for a vote was the City of Yes Economic Opportunity. CBA voted no, in opposition with conditions. So the conditions that went into the resolution, even though it was voted down, they received the conditions that the committees drafted. And then I met with the borough president on a separate day. We spoke about quite a few different items, from membership to upcoming City of Yes new office space. We spoke quite a bit. And positive meeting, and she thinks we're doing a good job so far. I did. Okay. In regards to the City of Yes, I'm considering putting together a special committee on the City of Yes housing section. It's the last part of the City of Yes. I think with a special committee, we'll have one resolution coming out of it instead of the last that we try to do a joint committee meetings, and then each committee splintered out, and we had 4 different resolutions. So I think with a special committee, and when I was at the borough president's office, when I had the meeting with her, I mentioned it, and they mentioned that there are other community boards in the Bronx who did a special committee for the City of Yes. Because in the end, we all have the last say. A special committee could be drafted, but the board members have the last say. Everyone can attend the committees, speak at the committees. So, but I think to have one resolution beneficial to everyone.
That leaves the land use committee or the housing committee. It is a zone. There are those committees in relation to a special committee.
Well, they're going to be part of the members will be part of the special committee. You know, they would definitely be part of the special committee.
You want to try joint meetings again, but
No.
instead do land use?
Does anyone want a joint meeting again with various resolutions, just by a show of hands?
Not do the whole stuff, just have joint meetings with one resolution too,
I mean, it makes sense.
hopefully.
Hopefully that was the hope at the last one, and you learn from your mistakes. And the last one, we had joint meetings, we had quite a few informative sessions, and then we ended up with 2 to 3 to 4 resolutions, depending how you looked at that night. So I figure with a special committee, you have one committee, one resolution, every single board member can go to every single meeting and have a voice. And when it comes to the board, everyone would have done their homework, they would have attended the meetings, they could see it on Zoom, and they can discussions and vote on one resolution. Naturally, any committee can do their own resolution, bring to the board. Yeah, what do you
Isn't
think?
that just what happens? I mean, because, like, you had the joint meetings, but then, for example, housing drafted their own thing anyway, so having a separate committee doesn't stop doing resolutions.
Exactly, and when housing did their resolution, the housing committee chair first, because I asked the housing committee, when I sat in on the economic development, joint meeting, I was surprised that they were talking about NYCHA. And I contacted the housing chair and I said, hey, listen, they're talking about NYCHA here, I think your committee should take a look at this. And the housing committee chair, to her credit, said, I will not do it until the economic and the land use committee chairs say okay. We reached out to them and they both said okay. Rosemary, did you want to say?
I think that's a very important distinction, that, the first time my committee, talked about what was going on, it was talk. We're in a committee, you talk about things. I refused to put forward a resolution because it was the two committees that were gonna deal with it. I would not do a resolution. When the chair said there is this one narrow piece on the housing authority, and it's important, when I say narrow, I'm not trying to belittle it, please take a look at it as it applies to NYCHA. That's when I did a resolution. I never would have done it ahead of that. It was very narrow, very pointed, and the two other committees agreed that that was okay if the housing committee looked at that narrow point.
I was surprised that NYCHA was in, just didn't expect it.
Or was the problem that you're trying to come up with one resolution, there's no reason to, because they're not asking us for a thumbs up, thumbs down to the entire city of yes for housing, whenever that finally does come to us. They're asking for comments on every single piece.
Mm-hmm.
So should instead it be cut up and given to each committee that it applies to, and you give the things that directly should be with housing to housing to comment on? Like, if it divides up, like how you're saying, how you commented on just that narrow aspect of it.
At the request of the chair of the board, that is it. I never would have done it. I don't believe it's appropriate. I'm sorry, Julie, I jumped in.
No, that's okay, because I asked, and we reached out to Nick and Chuck beforehand to see if it was okay, and they both said. And then when we receive the City of Yes housing, we'll take a look at it, and maybe it will be something else, we don't know.
You're half right. They do want us to comment yes, to approve it. No, well, they're looking for an approval. They'll accept comments, but they are looking for an approval for this. And I think that's the real dilemma of this whole effort. 'Cause I think they're going to take a couple of yeses and say, well, 32 boards approved it, let's go.
Any other questions, and I'll move on? Okay, so I'm just gonna make a motion to go into executive session based on open law meeting 105H, governing the proposed acquisition, sale, or lease of a property, and 105F, governing hiring of personnel. One opposed? One abstain? In favor? Okay, Mary Ellen, the only one? Okay, so we're back. Okay, so that's it for my report. Treasurer's report?
Well, if you want me to, I can. Oh, wait, where am I?
The middle tab. Okay.
1 second.
At the bottom there, yeah.
There we go.
So we have the February, treasurer's report draft. Very quickly, table one shows the breakdown of personal services, which are salaries for our staff members. And other than personal services, which is everything else, so the supplies and materials that we purchase for the office. OTPS balance currently is $20,630, which is broken down a little further in table 1.1. Some highlights from the month: we spent some money on office supplies, and I believe we paid actual cleaning bills as well. Upcoming purchases will include a printer toner for our printers, microphones and speakers for upcoming meetings, and some other miscellaneous office supplies. Table 1.2 shows no budget modifications for the month. Which is 190 that are still being processed. Family rent and energy detail, which is maintained separately by OMB, but we keep it here for our own reference. We still have that $10,000 with respect to OT. And that's my quick report for the month.
We have a lot of money in personal services, don't we? Right? And we're halfway through the year.
Yeah, we don't, I know Bob asked last month about transferring money from OTPS. I don't think we have as much as we think. Not gonna tell us exactly how much we have available.
Well, that's my question.
Yeah, we can ask about that. I think we still need to get another item, we get some other things processed in the meantime, that priority over that, but we'll follow up with that question for,
Yeah.
so.
Is this as of December 31 or January 31?
January.
Okay, so we are more than halfway through the year, with less than, half of the funds expended in, PS, so,
Yes.
yeah. So just,
They're not gonna tell us exactly. They're just not gonna tell us. But,
but also the same is true of OTPS, so, just food for thought.
okay.
Thank you. District manager's report?
Good evening, everyone. I just want to make a report about some events we've had. Our office received over 100 COVID test kits from Councilman Dinowitz that were quickly distributed to residents in the district. And now our community coordinator has secured 102 more kits from the Department of Mental Health and Hygiene, so we want to thank them. And we just posted it, and we already have people coming in to get more kits. So there's obviously a need out there for this, and it is the season. After the successful Department of Buildings Constituent Services event, in December, we're working on arranging for another date for more people to come. So when that's finalized, we will post to everyone. And thirdly, as we mentioned, we have secured now all of the meeting spaces for the rest of the year throughout all different areas of the district. Our next meeting will be at Amalgamated. We're going to be meeting at Manhattan College, at Fieldston, St. Stephen's Church, and we'll finish off with a bang at Wave Hill in June. And then just please be sure to check the calendar and agenda for the location of the meeting, since they'll be different every month. Yes, as far as speakers, we have been researching, trying out new speakers for our meetings. We're currently looking at something that's a very affordable option to bring an order right away, like 3 of these smaller speakers with microphones to get to the meeting. But I have researched with a bunch of the other community boards, what they're using, what they're spending on it. And in my own research, I found a great system, and then I found out that Community Board 11 also uses this, and it's really great. So they pay a service to do all this. Their service they pay to install and do everything, and it is a mobile thing you could bring with you to meetings. They spent $7,000, and then they also, they have them come to their meetings for $500 for every board meetings, so $500 a month, and they run the whole tech thing. I did not wanna go that route. I was just gonna buy the, speakers and the microphones, and we can set it up ourselves. So, that would be around about $3,000 to $4,000 investment. So I'm looking into it, but in the meantime, there's a much cheaper, immediate, option, these portable little speakers that we're gonna bring with us for the next meeting at least. So, I can send anyone who is interested, it's called Owl Lab, and it's made for these kind of meetings, and, yes.
So the $7,000 one that the other community board is using, you're not inclined to do, you're suggesting a $3,000 to $4,000 where the staff would operate it. Is any other community board using that, and what has their experience been in operating it?
I don't know, I have to ask, but certain other ones, they invest a lot of money in this. Like, Community Board 12 has actual Bronx Live,
Yes.
comes, runs the whole thing. They spend also a tremendous amount of money on that, but they have a tremendous amount of money for that.
I'm just asking, the $3,000 to $4,000.
Yep.
Any other community board using it, what is their experience with doing it themselves? That's the only question.
I don't know yet.
Okay.
So I don't know that they're doing it themselves yet. They're spending a lot of money to have people do it for them. As you know, we already do everything ourselves, so this is just to enhance our sound system and our filming of it. This is like a 360, whoever's speaking, it rotates towards. They have these like nice little small microphone speaker systems. You would just put a few on each table, and then they have a bar that I can put on a stand where it can go here during our meetings, or we take it with us to whatever meeting we're going to.
CD6 has that same system. Oh, they do? And it looks like they set it up themselves.
Yeah, it looks simple to set up. With 6 in the Bronx? Okay, that's good to know, thank you. So CB11 uses it, but they pay, and then CB12 does their whole live recording.
These are all Owl Labs?
Well, no, not CB12, or at least I don't know.
Well, the one you're
But
contemplating.
the one I'm looking is Owl, and the one she's saying they are
Okay.
using is Owl. So we'll check. What?
Send it to me, please.
Yeah.
I did have COVID early last month, and afterward went to the councilman's office to get replacement kits, and they were all expired. And when I asked him about it later, Eric about it a week or two later about his donation and whether it was his expired kits, he declined to answer.
You'll be happy to know the ones we have now are not expired.
Okay. Good.
We learned that lesson. Yes, Doug?
So Sarah, the $7,000 was for renting the equipment for?
It was for installing everything, yeah. I don't know if it's for renting, I can
Well,
ask
that's
that
my
question.
question. For $7,000, do you own it, or?
I think they own it, then they install it all for them. I will ask that question.
Okay.
I assume that, so I can ask.
Okay, and the $3,000 to $4,000, we would be purchasing the equipment?
We purchase it and just put it up ourselves.
Okay. All right. I wanted to understand the comparison. So
Yeah.
I knew which was which.
And then you know, I don't think we need someone to, although it would be nice for us not to have to do it, but, you know, for $500 a month, they come and do all the tech stuff for you.
I mean, one possibility might be that they come for a month or two and install it, and then you learn how to do it, and
Sure.
you don't need them after that.
Yeah. Well, this is, I'm researching, I've researched a bunch of things. This is kind of what I really thought would be great for us. But again, I'm gonna continue to reach out to more community boards too, to see what they're using.
Yes,
Yes.
that's the question. Will this, I don't know anything about technology, so, will this enhance the Zoom? Because when you sit up there, you do not hear everything or see everything.
That's what it's
It'll be
for.
louder.
If you look at, and I did this, I watched some of the CB11 meetings on their website. It's very clear You see everything, you hear everything, and that's
Oh,
the
that's
system
great.
that they're using.
Improvement.
Any more questions on that? Okay, and then I have a few more items. We're working on getting ready to post the press releases for February 15th for the awards, for the most valuable merchant and the community service award. So I know we've already spoken with Nick and the economic development, so that is ready to go to press, which we will do for February 15th. And the only other thing we need is the Community Service Award Committee, and just to approve, we did print up a press release that was done last year and updated it, so as long as we know we can send it, even if the committee members haven't met yet or anything, I just wanna make sure. We wanna get the nominations in, and, so it would run from February 15th we have to March 15th. So if anyone wants a different date, I would need to know. I already spoke to Riverdale Press, they said just send it to them and they will do it for next week. I recently held my district service cabinet meeting, and I want to thank you all for always sending me things to follow up on, and I will send my minutes shortly on that. Agendas and minutes, I want to stress that it is so important to follow our guidelines, to have the agenda 10 days before the meeting to post, and the minutes ideally 10 days after to post as well. We do not want to be out of compliance. Again, our office is here to help. If you have questions, if you need help, if you want guidance, use us, but we do need to stress that this has to be done. And lastly, I want to thank you all for your well wishes and your support during this time while I'm healing and my ankle is getting much better, so thank you. Yes,
I just want to note that, I really appreciate your requesting, prior, input to the district service cabinet, and you're posting the minutes afterward. That's new, and I think it's very useful.
Oh, good, great. Hope you're reading them. I try to inform. Okay. And those meetings are great. We meet with, I can't tell you how many, every week I get new people, agencies asking to be added to my list to meet. So, it's quite extensive, and we talk about a lot of things. They make their announcements, and we kind of can work together now, interagencies, to resolve certain issues. So that's been very useful.
Third, DOE, we haven't had them at a district service cabinet meeting. I don't know when.
I have the libraries. I don't have DOE, but absolutely, we can have DOE.
Well, I don't know how that becomes a reality. Do you reach out to them? Do they have to reach out to you?
Community, or intergov person at DOE. You can reach out to me, no, it's usually people I don't have on my list, and they hear about the meeting. But I can ask them, and they don't have to come every month. They could come when they have.
They just never do.
And if it's something that we have, like, I always put issues agencies that we want to talk about, so if it's something for DOE, I would reach out to them and have them come. New York State DOT, I've been trying, so has Randy from Dinowitz's office, to get their reps to come since I've started, they do not respond to anything. We finally got them this month, and now, I think I mentioned it to you, maybe? Yeah, I did today, you didn't read the email yet. But, they're giving us updates now on that retaining wall finally, and the bus stop there, on West 235th, south of West 235th Street, we're doing all that work. Oh, and I did ask if possibly you might want them to come.
Just say yes, just to.
Okay, good. So that's been very.
While
good.
you have them.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just a reminder, because we haven't been to the Amalgamated in a while, for those of you who haven't, the parking there is terrible.
Existent, particularly since they've installed
Anybody?
stations.
We could all ride our bikes there, so maybe.
If people want to carpool, they could meet and leave their car here, but the parking is terrible there. And at Amalgamated,
you know, where,
Vladeck Hall.
Vladeck Hall, it's by the St. Patrick's Rehabilitation Center.
By the reservoir.
Gubner and,
Go by the park.
Yeah.
Right, the one on Van Cortlandt South.
And then at the meeting, I forgot to mention, you'll also meet our new intern.
Those two.
Julian Baez, our board person, has, she's with Hunter College, and we're getting interns from her college. So you'll meet the new intern then.
The helps can run the speaker system.
And so,
They come to the meeting.
and so now we'll do a roll call.
Yeah.
Julie Reyes? Yeah. Isabella Verde? Margaret Della, present. Finger? Present. Walter? Present. Alexander?
Here.
Present. Bellman?
Here.
Gomez? Green?
Present.
Kaplan? Martinez?
Present.
Fiddler? Rowan? Travis? Present.
You.
Present. And we'll do the approval of the January 3rd Executive Committee meeting.
Mary has a hand.
Rosemary?
A minor change, maybe you could take district manager report, fourth bullet. Fourth bullet, it says a member wanted to clarify that board members are not allowed to accept tickets. Board members, yeah, are not allowed to. accept
Okay,
tickets.
so add or staff.
Oh, you have your copy? Oh, you have it?
You're out of luck, Farrah.
Pretty good if you could walk there.
Okay, so approve as amended.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Anybody object? Same, okay. So committee reports and resolutions. The community board meeting, when we have our meetings, I've just, some committees out of order, and if you have a resolution, we're gonna do them first. Stacy, you have one?
I have one resolution, Caridad Restaurant at 13545 West Kingsbridge Road is up for renewal, full liquor license.
It sounds like.
Committee, unanimously approved it. That's it.
Disapprove? Abstain?
We don't
We don't vote, we don't vote.
You can do that at the board meeting.
Three.
Okay. Okay, so you have a report?
Read the minutes.
So is anything important?
We have on our agenda for, our February 20th meeting, we have two SLA renewals, one SLA new application, an SLA corporate change. During the old business, we're gonna discuss the closure of 236th Street and Broadway by the, 50th Precinct. And, new business, we are going to do a preliminary,
Thank you. The next. This is land use. Give that to you, Marty.
There's one resolution from land use concerning, last one, we think, So the city is trying to abdicate its responsibility to come to us. They want to establish a casino within the community board area, and instead of doing it the city council zoning resolution way, they want to have the state select sites they want to go on their own without community input. So the resolution that's before us, as we come next week, is basically telling the city that we do not appreciate this bypass of us. So Bronx Community Board 8 unanimously rejects the proposal and declines to succeed to the request instead of reaffirming its right of prior review. That's the premise, and that's what the resolution is about. Want the whole report or just?
Do you want to give?
We have 2 items of importance come before us. 2 items came before us on Monday night. One item concerns a house on,
College Parkway.
College Parkway. What I do with it?
I think it's 4401, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You want? Yeah. One, about 4401, correct. There's a lot of confusion here. Apparently, changes were made to the property without prior approval of landmarks because it's in the historical district. And the question is whether or not the Property Owners Association even knew about it. So they came to us with 2 requests. One, make the things they've already done kosher. B, they want to add a patio and a swimming pool, and they want permission to do that. We basically tabled them. Who made the original changes? What approvals did they apply for? And does FPOA or the surrounding neighbors know about any of this? They're coming back next month. We put them on hold until we get those answers. The architect who made the presentation know when those changes were made. I think it's our obligation to find out who, when, and where, particularly if it's the present owner. I can't believe a person bought it not doing his own research. So I'm inclined to believe, I can't prove it yet, that the current landowner now wants permission to do what he's already did. So they're coming back next month. The second item, really, I found personally troubling, given my own background, and that is the section surrounding the Van Cortlandt Library and the Van Cortlandt Jewish Center. Stephen Place, the developer wants to knock down almost everything and closing. There's nothing for us to look at or think about because the proposal has been made, except for one building that they're working on. The discussion was what happens to Van Cortlandt Jewish Center. The leadership of the board was here and indicated clearly that they do not want to be in the landlord business anymore. They survive because they are renting out certain parts of their facility, and based on that income, they can survive, but they want to be a tenant. So questions were raised how they can become a tenant either in that facility or in something else that might be constructed in that area. Troublesome, since my wife and I were married in Van Cortlandt Jewish Center, and her parents were members when we got married. So concerned. In general, what happens to religious facilities, visitation church, the rest, when either the population no longer can support that institution, and what happens to that institution and how it impacts the community in general. So these are kind of overriding questions of concern. There's no answer yet on what's taking place at Stevenson Place until actual proposal is filed. we can talk about it, but in the meantime, these issues were raised and these concerns were raised. Finally, on land use, we had a meeting with STAG today. The plan was for them to have been completed end of December. It's done, but there have been several causes for them to delay. Edison was one of them, which held them up, and the windows being produced out of the state was the second one. As a result, for a period of time, all employees, all construction workers were taken off of this site and work on other sites, so they are behind schedule. Any luck, they'll be finished in February, if there's any luck. So just to let you know, yes. Answer the question I created, you know, a 10-foot high statue. It's building, it's sculpture. It's going to be a
Floral kind of thing.
floral, what's the word, not lifelike, but interpretive, I think the word.
Impressionist.
It's gonna be artistic, and up there, they will not show us a picture yet, they might. David's of the impression that once it's up, people will love it or not love it, who cares? Tell them now, they'll all say, change this, change that, change the other thing. So we haven't seen it yet. That's STAG.
I'm just gonna work myself backwards. Youth, is anyone reporting for youth?
Impressionist.
Transportation, Kelly?
Next meeting is the 15th. City DOT will be there to present on a proposal to modify the intersection of Van Cortlandt Park South and Bailey Avenue leading to the Deegan. Encourage everyone to show.
You what?
That could be the worst intersection in the world.
It's gotten better. They do, it has. The timing is better. The timing is better, yes. But I don't know what the changes are. I haven't seen anything. But they did ask to come to present at the meeting on the 15th.
Parks and Recreation, Seth?
So, National Society of Colonial Dames came to our last meeting, so I'll refer you to the minutes. Is on February 20th. And mostly we're going to be focused on just and talking a little bit about next. The Parks Department, Commissioner Ponte and the committee in the end of our committee meeting, we asked them to come back in May, tell us what they would be doing better, like concrete. We'll be sending out a letter from the committee, we set to finalize some language, just explaining what the expectations of the Parks Department is in the community in general, and and then also there was a bit of discussion about the muggings that have been happening in Van Cortlandt Park and the response from the 50th, the 47th, I think, right? And they said that they had not had an incident. This was as of a week. An incident since the very beginning of January.
Definitely gonna get discussed at public safety as well.
That seems to be spreading citywide, the issue of moped, grab and go.
Possible gang involvement with that also.
That was an interesting meeting you had. Okay, so back to you, Marty.
3 items, them are very connected. Item number 1 is, we spoke about Alex, Skip, coming to our February board meeting, March LRE meeting. he said, I've distributed, I had, what's called the, language guide for committee board members. Just to read it, I've distributed it before also, but, I think if you have any questions, reading that will certainly bring them to the fore. Raised by Margaret, I believe, at the last board meeting, whether or not, board members should feel free to say, any comment relative to elected officials, how, they do or do not support what we believe they should be doing. Correct, it is totally inappropriate, and, that was discussed at one previous time with our speaker. I asked Alex to address that again. And Rosemary will tell you, Alex makes a great, and he's worth listening to. Two items interconnected but different. The LRE has been much stymied by not having a quorum on 2 occasions, and my illness on a third. So we've not moved this fast enough. Now I think, if we go forward, we're on a very close clock. Number one, the issue was raised at elections. Nominating committee and selection of new officers each year. It doesn't work out well. Might be a better idea is to move it forward 1 month. As a result, the month of June could be used if there is a new chair. The chair and the new chair can talk to each other on break. And so there's some kind of internship period, at least for that month. What happens now, in June, we have the election, the chair is leaving for whatever reason, and if the chair is not reappointed, know that at that time, that may not solve the problem, but it's an issue of interest, and so we're looking at it, and if the LRE decides that there ought to be a change, that's a bylaws change, given the clock, if you want to do it this year, that means in the March meeting, the February meeting, have to raise a resolution for a bylaws change. And come back the following month in March, then in March is when the nominating committee would have to be elected. Choose to miss this year because life has gone on well, then it'll be next year. But I will not have an answer to those questions until LRE meets on Monday before the board meeting. Second thing, which is connected also, is something that's in the ethical guidance manual, which we spent a lot of time putting together as a calendar for the nominating committee, when it meets, how it meets, what the process is from the election of the committee through its report back to the board. Suggested that there are too many confusing dates in that calendar, and as a result, to try and achieve Laurel's the open meetings law, and trying to achieve that, we advertised a number of meetings, not all of which were needed, and so it ended up with the office having to postpone meetings or cancel meetings. And if we change the calendar, we could make that a whole lot easier for the office process. Moving on our discussion, that requires just notification to the board of the suggested changes, and it does not require a change in bylaws. Those two things are interconnected, and be discussed on Monday night.
Any questions?
More just a clarification, if you don't mind. I'm a little confused about, can you give an example of what we're allowed to say about elected officials and what we're not allowed to say about elected officials? I don't understand.
I would give you a response, but I'm sure Alex will get a response. I'm not going to say something negative that so voted against us, where we'll see him or whatever. not required, not appropriate. I think that's what triggered the comment that was made at the last meeting. Something like that was said. Thank an elected official for passing X, Y, or Z, or supporting X, Y, or Z, that's appropriate.
Mhm.
But to damn them for, not supporting it, is totally inappropriate.
Think we can request them to support something? Is that?
That's appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
And you'll hear more at the, Law Rules and Ethics Committee as well. They'll go into, housing, Rosemary?
Oh,
I'm going backwards.
you surprised me. We didn't have a quorum at the meeting, unfortunately, we are trying to get people to come and speak to our committee for a lot of background information on housing. We all want to be educated on this, and we had asked Department of City Planning to come. Instead of attending, they gave us a lot of census information about our district, housing, type of housing, incomes, I mean, it was all sorts of information. If you read my minutes, I highlighted maybe a half dozen elements that I thought were interesting, that people would be interested in knowing about our district. But what Lee and I talked about, take that census information, very current information, and try and make a narrative out of it. And maybe put it into the housing guide at the beginning. So that was the discussion at the meeting, and I think it would be valuable to do something like that. At our next meeting on the 22nd, we are getting Ted Weinstein and a group of people from HPD come and talk to us about affordable housing and a number of things related to housing, what HPD is doing. I think it's gonna be a very interesting session. Feel free to, and by the way, since it's on Zoom, you can listen to it anytime, but I'm really looking forward to, him and his team coming and talking to us. So just the third thing, Sarah, ask Councilmember Sanchez to come to our March meeting. We had invited her to October. She was coming, it was on the agenda, she didn't come. So March is coming, and it would be good to request again. I'm catching you right here, 'cause I got you, okay?
Because she's the council chair.
Yes, she is the chair of the Housing Committee in the City Council, so it's,
To the February meeting, right?
No, March.
Thank you.
February's gonna be Ted Weinstein.
That's, okay.
Okay, so that's it. Good?
Thank you.
Okay.
You have a nice speaker too, Ted Weinstein.
I know. I know. Very, very knowledgeable, a lot of history at HPD, and, yep. Mhm.
Anyone from Health and Hospital? Josh and Rabbi aren't here. Okay. Environment and Sanitation.
Okay, so I have my first meeting ever, so there'll be minutes for that soon, I'm sorry. We did pass a resolution. I don't have the text of it, because Rob was taking notes, and he never sent it to me. I emailed him about it, so I was sort of waiting for that, because I had to put that into the minutes.
He's out of the country.
Right, but he had written down, we voted on changes that he proposed
Right,
and had
right, right.
written on his piece of paper, which I never got. So,
O'clock,
can we
Daniel.
not do this at the next meeting?
Well, you discuss it, just tell us what the resolution is about, and then we can get it out to.
So the resolution's it's back from like November, I guess, but maybe they didn't have a quorum, if they didn't meet, there was no chair, et cetera. Anyway, the resolution is simply to tell the MTA not to store garbage right across the train tracks from Marble Hill houses. Basically, just do not have a waste transfer station there, because maybe they kind of already do unofficially, and there's been weird back and forth with that, and they're gonna now try to get an easement to run the Tibbetts Brook pipe through right there anyway, and build a new greenway, so don't put trash there.
It's not hypothetical, they are using it for waste transfer. They used to use tracks in Grand Central Terminal that now are used for the Long Island Railroad connection. So where the garbage had been transferred in Grand Central, it's now being transferred up in exactly where you located it, in Marble Hill. So, I mean, that's a fact.
Isn't it actually out at Hunter's Point where they were doing that? And the Long Island Railroad was still the issue that kicked it out.
Yeah, The Long Island Railroad connection caused them to make changes.
Yeah.
But it's my understanding that, waste transfer is taking place at Marble Hill.
Claim it's recycling.
So you can get the resolution to Farron, she'll distribute it to the board members before our meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I forget, we made a change, and that it happened very, very quickly, and then we voted on it.
But do you have a draft of it?
Yeah.
So just send her draft, just in case, just to give the board members something to look at, and then they could always amend it at the meeting if you don't get it before the meeting.
You did verbally at the meeting, it may be on the video.
On the video.
Oh, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But exactly, I was hoping Bob, I mean, he was supposed to have written out the full thing, but
Your next meeting is,
next meeting's on the 21st.
okay. Sylvia?
Sylvia?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. At our meeting, in, January, we spoke about the mayoral, control of the public schools, which is, in the news every day. The mayor had gone up to, Albany, to advocate for 4 years. He hasn't received it yet. It won't be until June 30th is the deadline. And, across the country, there is, dispute as to whether that is better than, the school boards. I don't think either one is, perfect, but, we'll see what comes out of it. My next meeting is on the 27th of February. And, of course, we always talk about budget.
Good lead-in.
Economic?
Hi, good evening, everyone. We had our meeting yesterday at 100 Riverdale Avenue. Please refer to our minutes. At the meeting, we discussed several topics, including budget items, RBC's receiving of the Strategic Neighborhood Grant. They're going to do with the funding support from the Bronx Chamber of Commerce. And we had DSNY to talk about the new commercial containerization laws and the new commercial carting zone and street vending. We set a tentative date for a walkthrough on March 8th. We're planning on inviting SBS's Small Business Service Team, as well as a representative from DOT, with the idea that we'll be able to share information with our merchants about the permanent outdoor dining.
You say you had a meeting yesterday,
Yesterday.
and did you say your minutes are done?
Yeah.
Are you trying to make us look bad?
It helps when you're an insomniac.
Wow.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so budget, save it?
Okay, thank you. So we got the mayor's, the agency responses, to the, items that we, voted on and submitted in October. We received about 3 weeks ago the mayor's, and OMB responses, to the fiscal year 2025, starting July 1st. So that was 3 weeks ago. About 2 weeks ago, the office sent out copies of that to all of you, hoping that you would have your comments on their comments by last Thursday. As I understand, there were no comments.
I do have one comment, Matt.
Okay.
But there was a valid question, I guess, just an email sent to you on these comments, or is there a form or a way you want people to comment on these responses?
I would just forward the email, assuming it's reasonably instructive.
Okay.
So that's all in anticipation of the budget hearing we are going to have Tuesday, immediately preceding the board meeting. So at 6:30, we will have the budget hearing where the community will be invited to comment on those agency responses and focus on that. Not, we'd like to have more garbage cans or cleaner parks. It's to be focused on exactly what they told us that they want to do, or can do, or cannot do.
The 4 things
4 things?
of the spreadsheet, I think only 4 items, all of them said, oh yeah, that's in the budget.
Yeah, well, that's always the case. It's usually, nice idea, ask your, council member.
Even have that, they need more research.
This year have that.
Yeah,
Some of them they did.
well, but
Some said needs more research, and some said, we agree, but there's no money. And
right.
4 of them were like,
Right. Okay, so the purpose of the hearing is to, solicit and hear comments from members of the community on that. And that will be the focus of that 6:30 to 7 o'clock, time period. And then I think we will have a vote on, our comments about it, during the meeting. Excuse me. And following on our typical pattern, please, in your committee meetings this month, do actually establish the 2 lists for, fiscal 2026, both capital and expense, that you should come out of this month's meetings with your, committee members on, those 2 lists. Next month, try to prioritize them, and then in April, finalize that priority. We are expected to respond to, the mayor's office by, did you get the date, was it the 20th or so? Okay. But, so, coming out of the, board meeting next week, we'll use that to come up with, a commentary coming, and, excuse me, basically, Farah and Julie and I will sit down on that, and, aiming to get that out by, I think it's the 20th. But please do follow up for your meetings, this month, and March and April for the following fiscal year, starting July 1, 2025, going through June 30 of 26. That's about it. The council member asked me to comment on, he had invited, us to participate in the homeless outreach, census, about 2 weeks ago. There were about 7 or 8 people from his office.
That would be new business.
Sorry?
That would be new business, huh?
Yes, question?
Please.
I don't know if I'm the only one that had it, but when I got my, information, when it came in, many of the items were typed over, doubly, so that you can't see it. And, I'm just wondering why that is, and can I get another one that's clear?
Are you referring to the responses from the agencies?
It's on the website. Did we print it up for you? It was very clear.
Well, I can show you mine. I mean, I'm not making it up.
No, I'm
But
not.
it's from the you're referring to the agency ones, not
Like
from your email?
the problem with our list, briefly.
Because remember our original
Well,
priority
you
list?
sent so many of them. There were about 5 or 6, that you were supposed to look at. So some of them didn't really pertain to that particular, issue of the responses, but they were all in this big, email. And I don't remember which one was what, but I know that the agency ones were typed over.
Sylvia, you need a copy of what?
The agency, so that I can read them.
They'll get a copy to you then.
Needs the register of community board budget
The
requests.
register is on the website.
No, the register, I'm not, that's not.
Well, I think we can do that offline. Why don't you give, Farah a call tomorrow to, find that? 'Cause I didn't send it out, so I'm not sure what you're referring to. It came out of the office of.
I guess.
Okay. But that's what that was.
I'm just gonna reiterate, the original, the final priority list, that is our graph that we originally did is on the website. The agency, the submission For the request is on the website, and then the responses are, the register is on the website.
I'll look on the website.
The very
I'll let
first
you know
page.
if it's not,
But we can print it up for you.
okay.
Question for the park. All of our items, is that, should
Yeah.
figure out what the answer is here?
I have one more question about it. Usually they immediately say that we don't have money.
Right.
They appreciate this item, but we can't fund it. I had a lot of studies. We were going to study things. How does that work?
I
I
would,
mean, you can't really, argue with that. That's a helpful kind of thing that they're offering. But when does that come through? Or where do you stand on that?
was that a response this year or in a prior year?
No, the one for
One we just got. I would check with them. I mean, they're probably going,
Who?
well, the agency, probably SCA or BOE. Right?
Oh.
Well, in your request, you identify the agency, don't you?
I do.
Okay, so I would check with the agency, be it Department of
It's a
Education.
large agency. I don't understand where I'm going to call in order to be able to not repeat my story to a million people.
Yeah, it is in the, all the contacts are there, but we can help facilitate.
When you receive, because Farah's gonna make a copy for you, when you receive the copy, give her a call or come into the office with whichever is best for you, and you and Farah will go over it. You'll look, once you get the printout copy.
Okay. I never had this.
If you already went into the computer and you can't see it, Farah will do a printout copy for you, and then you guys figure it out.
Why don't you pull that?
So we're just gonna move on, we're gonna move on.
Showed that on this.
We're gonna move on, Sylvia, okay? Okay, aging,
Yeah, so we were scheduled to have a meeting on this Thursday, but our guest speaker, who was from RSS, Director of Community Engagement, backed out at the last minute, and in an effort to not have a pointless meeting with not a heavy agenda to give people time back, we decided to this month's meeting and move on to a meeting in March. It will be coming soon, the budget will be on it. Guest speaker from RSS has confirmed.
okay, that's all the committee reports, right? Did I get?
Two special committees.
Yeah, that's all.
Oh, we have three. Parks, Greenway, so Bob, Bender.
Okay. So we met, the minutes have gone out. The main subject that we discussed at the meeting is that Metro North has finally acknowledged that they have a severe resiliency problem along the Hudson River. And their engineers have said that if they don't do something, there will be regular flooding of the Hudson Line tracks due to the rising level of the river. And so they have a 20-year capital needs assessment and resiliency of the Hudson River shoreline between Spite and Dival and going up at least to Riverdale is in that 20-year capital needs assessment. Next thing that happens is a 5-year capital budget plan. We want to sit down with Metro North before they get to the point of drawing up that 5-year capital budget plan and discuss with them how there might be a way to do their resiliency project that could also benefit the Greenway, or at the absolute minimum, not inhibit the construction of the Greenway. So we're going to work on that, but the fact that they finally acknowledged that there is a serious problem there is a big step forward. And, we're going to go from there to see what we can do to help make the Greenway a reality. In the minutes.
I want to note, I overlooked the tracks, and 2 in the morning till 8 in the morning for the last several nights. They've been coming out and filling in underneath the tracks that which has been washing away.
Mhm.
Fortunate.
Hey, Margaret?
Scream met last week, and we discussed the recent FBI report on hate crime statistics nationally, between 2018 and 2022. Emphasize hate crimes at a third most likely place where individuals instances, and it tends to be elementary school age children, dominantly Black children, Jewish children, and children who also identify as LGBT or those targeted. Discuss that and the compounding mental health and health conditions that children suffer or youth suffer as a result of stress, those who experience discrimination, etc. So PTSD can be common even in individuals that are not experiencing a war theater. Depression, anxiety, diabetes, hypertension, etc. So we began the conversation in focusing on, as I mentioned last meeting, hate on health. And so we had been talking about this topic at HHS, but our scope was so broad, and with this recent report, we then were talking about youth and the compounding conditions for youth and what we as a community could do to rally around youth, how to bring awareness, how to have a youth-led conversation, how to talk about self-hate and to focus on those who are committing hate crimes, and certainly focusing on suicide as an outlet of self-hate and mental health challenges. So as we continue to discuss hate in our community, how it erodes individuals and certainly the fabric of our community, we started to look at every individual committee and how there was something that could be relevant to what's going on in our communities as it pertains to mitigating and eradicating hate. And so one of the recommendations that we had for you all, certainly we'd love for each committee to take hate as a part of its agenda and think about ways in which hate has been destructive within the community that pertains to your specific area of expertise. It was easy for us to start thinking about the youth and education committees. We were talking about HHS, as I already mentioned, and then it ripples over or spills over into public safety, into veterans issues, and. So we kept going on, and we really felt as though we want to create a community conversation. And just as we did collectively in talking about racial equity, utilizing and being specific about how hate is permeating our communities and what each respect about it. So we're action steps. We'd love to hear feedback from you all. We'd love to perhaps after you speak with your committees, and I'm sure it doesn't take too much for people to start thinking about ideas that could help the community and bring greater awareness. But we also want to compile resources that are in the community. So that could be schools, how schools are involved in mitigating hate. That could be in any sort of form of bullying or toxicity on social media, how it impacts children's lives and how they feel about themselves, and ultimately their overall health and well-being. So we're going to start that resource guide that directs people to resources on suicidal ideation, that is resources on mental health, nonprofits in the community, schools in the community, et cetera, where anti-aging, and those sorts of things, wherever your creativity and wherever the community is telling you, we'd love to hear from you all. We're going to begin some of those pieces of capturing resources that already exist in the community, where people can go to report hate crimes, that, as we've already talked about, but having an active tool that could be shared on the website, with dynamic information from you all.
Because when you guys started speaking, you kept going and going and going. It was a good conversation. Questions?
I just want to add, it's very interesting, but, I did have in my minutes that the chancellor has now, they're going to train principals as to the hate, the Israeli and Hamas, situation. Teachers don't know how really to answer the questions that children have, and, the principals are being, trained, and then they're supposed to train the teachers, and there's a whole, action going on there, which is along the lines that you were speaking of. I didn't know if you know that.
Mm-hmm. And I think that sort of emphasizes a point that we continuously come back to, and that as one group is targeted with anti-Semitism, anti-Muslim behaviors, anti-LGBTQ, anti-Black, that it also increases the hate crimes against another group. So collectively, we have to rally together, because no matter what, when there's a hate crime, an increase in hate crimes against one group, it's also going to bring a rising tide against all the other communities in our community. And so it takes all of us. It takes conversations that we have here. It's the way we speak to each other. It's the way we carry ourselves in the community. It's the way that we continue to be a part of these conversations, and that we all have to.
Is anyone reporting for veterans? So that we'll go on to unfinished business. Any unfinished business? Business. We'll bring it to the Community Board, Community Service Awards.
I may be the only one who's thinking this, and I have for a number of years, and brought it to Laura's attention. Nothing has changed the way that I think is appropriate, but you may outvote me when I'm finished, so I'm done. In 1992, resolution is here, Community Service, 1992. Community Service Award was created. I was chair of the board at the time, and I'm the one who raised it. And the concept, and I want you to keep that concept in mind, is that it's a board award. It's given to whomever on behalf of the board. The way things have evolved, we now have 3 awards. Person of the Year, Comeback Kid, and Community Service, now named for Irving Latimer. And each of those, in my mind, seem to go from committee to awardee without board involvement. So in theory, it is not a board award, it's a committee award. In the old days when this first began, as the resolution indicates, and this is before the open meetings law, the discussion at one of the executive meetings in which names were discussed. And I recall one year, I won't mention who and I won't mention what, when someone said, you can't give that person an award. I didn't even know who the person was, but we withdrew, the name was withdrawn. In that process, it became a board award, not a committee. What's happening now, pretty much what happens with the Yankee Award. I have no idea how the Yankees get somebody's name, but when the award is given, it's given on behalf of the Yankees. Thank you very much. We're an audience, and we become an audience with all 3 of the others. And so my sense and my belief is that somehow we have to devise a system where we get back to board award. So each of us know in advance who who the persons are who are selected, why they're selected. Now, when it comes to nominating committee, yes, well, we go through the search for, the district manager, and we held resumes in our hands. We numbered the resumes, so we can talk about a number rather than talking about a person, and therefore the whole world can watch, because we're talking about 36. We're talking about John Doe. In this case, I'm not sure how the process should be run, but I definitely believe we have to get back to community board award or a committee award, that position.
I thought that the committee nominates and the board votes.
If that's what you believe, that's not what you've seen in the last several years. Event occurs, the names are announced, here are the certificates, and that's all we do. We're an audience, we're not involved in the process.
I was sworn we voted, but, okay.
Correctly, I agree with you in terms of not being involved in the process. However, the assumption is, at least the assumption when I inherited the board in the Economic Development Committee, was that the committee had the approval and support of the board selecting the awardee. That's how I've always approached the Latimer Award as a spectator, that whomever the chair decides to be that committee inherently has the support of people that we trust, our colleagues, to be able to nominate somebody in the community that's deserving of that. And I believe that that will be the case in either scenario. That being said, I'm not opposed to amending it, as from a, as a practical matter. But I think that to say that we don't have any say, to a certain extent, that's true, but at the same time, we have trust in our colleagues to be able to make sound and just decisions when it comes to
The era where it was much like a resolution, where the committee would put forth the names and say, these are the people we're presenting for the board, and then the whole board would vote on it, and there might be a little bit of it was kind of both. It was the opportunity for the committee to pick and I thought that was, and you're right, that in the last couple of years we haven't done that, and, but I better to go back to the full board, just because I think it's more powerful in acknowledging the people on the committee.
And just, I agree with everything that they've said, but it's an important concept, that is the board that gives the awards. Committees don't give awards, the board gives, that the board has the authority and the power to do that. So to the extent that we could get back to, concept, I think that would be helpful.
Or could this be resolved if we move the process up by a month so that it is a nomination that the board votes on, so that, assuming approval at X month, in Y month, the award would be given out, having been voted on by the board in the previous month? Does that resolve it? I could have sworn that's what we were doing,
Yes,
but,
that's
okay.
how we're doing.
Okay.
But that's, yes, that was what happened in.
Years gone by.
It was first begun.
Okay.
That's what was done.
Okay.
Easily hand out resumes with nomination certificates, label them, and so each board member can see who's being nominated. And and that one case was that this guy can't possibly get an award. Never happens again, but at least the board, the imprimatur of the board is there, because it was discussed by the board.
Okay with that?
And so then the end result, Marty, with all the, you have, there's 4 of them. Veterans to come back. Latimer and veterans. Any others?
Veterans? There's no veteran award.
They gave an
Yankee
award.
Award goes through the Yankees.
The veterans.
Well, the Yankees bet, we don't have anything to do with that. I mean, we have something to do with that, but we don't participate. The four that we have is the Merchants, the Comeback, Irving Latimer, and the Veterans.
No veterans.
He gave out,
Now, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
I hope they say he gave out.
Well, he gave it at that veterans event, he made a citation.
Oh, he invented.
That's not like an award.
Oh, yeah.
Same basic issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The board or the board award.
Yeah.
That was an issue.
Vetting the nominations and submitting their top three, or the whole board is vetting all the nominations now?
No.
And he's making a recommendation.
The recommendation from the committee comes to the board.
Yes.
Rubber stamp or not, but they're involved in the process.
Not necessarily advocating for this, because I'm perfectly fine with the way it's done now. However, I think what you're suggesting, I think it could work. This committee would then draft the resolutions for the board meeting to say, so-and-so, the Economic Development Committee has, recommends so-and-so for this award, and then the board would vote on it. How it would work. So it would be put into the resolution.
But you would have to give the reasons why you're recommending this person for this award, or this, merchant for this award. Yeah.
I think years ago, when the exec used to vote, the exec would vote on it and pass it along, if I remember correctly. We used to vote on things, and that's when people would even stop a resolution from going to the board. Years ago, before meetings law.
I remember the discussions, and I remember specifically the example that Marty's talking about. And with a group like, there were some people who said, well, you know, we do all the interviewing, we do all the work. The people who didn't want to see, I'm gonna make it up, Sylvia jump in and say, well, I want Joe Smith to get an award. That wasn't the purpose of doing it. The people who do the work and do the research and everything, they come up with, but it comes to the executive committee meeting. And it was really a consensus. This person who was eliminated from the list, there was good and solid reason for it. And that is why the executive committee should take a look at it. But the resolution should not say the committee is giving you, it's the board, the board is giving it.
Right,
Okay.
that's, those details could be worked out. But I'm just saying, as a practical matter, for what you would suggest, that's what it would, that's the.
Use the word rubber stamp for a reason.
That's right.
It's still
Gotcha.
the process.
Marty, if I hear correctly, the process going back to how it would be with most of the boards, committee making their recommendations. Then it comes to the exec, and then the exec would go back to taking votes.
No,
We don't take votes, Julie. I think, you know, we have very good discussions here that, sometimes cause resolutions to be changed. They come in a certain way, there is a conversation, and there's agreement, okay, let's fix this, it's not quite right. I think that's what we're talking about doing here, is that the committee comes in, gives its reasons and all of that, and if everybody thinks that sounds just wonderful, then we say, great, go ahead, do it. And sometimes somebody will say, wait a second, I know something about this person. So, you know, it's not voting, it's, review.
But then if the committee felt that we may not like that person, but our committee stands firm on this and we're gonna proceed with this, then it would just go right to the board.
Well, then we
Yeah.
have the same discussion we always have here, where sometimes there is disagreement, and, you know, we'll resolve it, because we always do.
But if it doesn't get resolved, then it would just go right to the board.
Well, that's true. That's okay. A committee is entitled to do that.
Is the final arbiter.
Here's, Nick and then Marty, because I see Marty's ready to say something.
Theoretically, board members could participate during the discussion at the committee level. Same.
Marty?
The issue of having someone's name raised, or family notified, or whatever, and then turned down, that's horrific. Certainly wouldn't want that to happen. But the comments that were made here is pretty much what was originally intended, that your committee says, our committee recommended that X and Y receive the award, and these are the reasons for our choice, and we either nod our heads, or you get some feedback in one way or another. But all I'm saying is that there is a process that makes it a board award, as opposed to being just a committee award. What's been happening, as you're suggesting, the committee, 99.9% fully agree with the committee's choice. And you're right, we've given that authority. But the fact is, when it goes from your committee to the recipient, committee award.
So then it would have to go before the board twice then? Because you...
No.
But like how Marty just said, let's say committee selects 4 people.
Nominates.
They nominate, no, they recommend 4 people. They bring it here to the exec. We don't vote, so it would have to go to the board.
Right.
And then the board may say yes or no. And if they say yes, then you have to let the person know, because you don't want to tell them beforehand. Like Marty said, you're telling someone you may have it and then you don't. So then it has to come back to the board the second time so that we can say who the person was. Because the first time, we're not putting names out there, so that you say, okay, we want to select a what words do you guys use? We want to nominate someone. You're not going to name the person, because what if the board says no?
A decision that was made by the board.
I don't want to name anybody publicly like that. Like, I would do an A/B.
People object if they don't know who it is.
It would be like when we did the district manager, we didn't say the names, we just gave them letters or something. Because when you're putting it out there, you don't want to put, oh, we're nominating somebody, and then say no. I wouldn't be one.
Well, one would hope that the committee did a good job of vetting.
Yeah, but like what happened in the past,
One time out of probably 40.
we don't know what happens in committee in the past. They could have said, no, we don't want that person, but now we have to bring it to the public.
I have a couple of months to worry about this. I will go back, assuming they're there, the minutes, 1990s. I'm not sure that went back to the board.
It did, it went to exec.
I think it was vetted by the exec and then moved forward. I want to double check that.
It would come to exec because we used to vote back then. That's why it never, yeah, because it wouldn't go to the board. It is if you're gonna put someone's name out there.
There is a procedural way that might solve this. That there is a precedent for committee of the whole, where a committee does vote, and that is on behalf, the decision of that committee is on behalf of the board.
No, absolutely
The
not.
whole is the whole.
Right.
But you give you give the committee the authority. We did this, we had this with education.
No, that's not what he wants.
Can I
That's not what
suggest,
he
can we
wants,
task
but
Marty?
It's not what
I know,
he
but
wants,
it's,
but that is a procedural thing, that it is not a committee award. If the board has given the committee the authority to select the individual, and it is a board award.
David, and then,
We table this and I'll do some more research.
And make a recommendation to, the chair? I think that's the best way to go.
I table it for till next month.
okay,
All right.
thank you. And then, David had wanted to put something on for a real quick mention for new business. You don't have to do a motion to add it on, right? Because it's new business?
Oh, it's just a,
Thank you.
yeah, the HOPE program, the Homeless Outreach Population Enumeration, I think it was. It was the homeless count about 2 weeks ago. He invited folks to come out. I think I was the only one, well, I thought I was the only one there. I met Emily Hausman. I didn't know she was a board member. But anyway, so it was about 6 or 8 of us went out and with a police escort and went to the subways, et cetera, et cetera. It was from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. I actually recommend it to people, for next year. It'll be next January, probably around the 30th.
Good enough, thank you, David. Next exec is March sixth. And anybody make a motion to adjourn? Anybody else disapprove?